Hi everybody, welcome back to class. Let's start today with a quick quote from Michelle Obama. You should never view your challenges as a disadvantage. Instead, it's important for you to understand that your experience facing and overcoming adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages. Today we're going to be talking about the essay structure or mode of classification. So you can look at it two ways. Classification, division, they're very closely related. So we're going to talk to you today about both strategies. And again, these are just another pattern of development for writing. A classification brings two or more related items together, kind of a big group, and categorizes them according to type and kind. And a division takes a single unit or concept and breaks it down into parts. I'm going to give you some examples of these, so if this doesn't click for you just yet, don't worry. Okay, so if you are one of the people in our class who is into science, this may be familiar to you. So this is an example of a division. The three domains of life. The domains of life are really complicated, so it makes sense to break things down into groups to make it easier for somebody to understand who is not a scientist. I feel like maybe we all feel that we can understand peanut butter, but it also can be a little bit complicated. I wonder if you've had the experience of standing in the peanut butter and jelly aisle in your local grocery store thinking about which one you're going to buy. Do you do creamy, crunchy, low sugar, organic, that oily natural peanut butter that you have to stir up? You could take this topic and you could break it down into its parts and explain the pros and cons and benefits and qualities of each one. Classification would be taking, a big group of something that may seem, that not everybody's the same or all the things are the same and trying to put them into groups. So we're recording this at the time of a pandemic quarantine. So you could classify all Americans as into different types of how people respond to a quarantine. When you do a classification, something that's important to do is use one organizing principle so that everybody can fit into one category. So let's say we were trying to classify how people respond to a pandemic quarantine. We'd have those early adopters, or people who we have in the past called preppers, people who already have powdered milk and powdered eggs and all those things stocked up for just such an occasion. We all know that we've been having problems in the United States during this period of time with hoarders, people who go to a grocery store and clear out the whole toilet paper aisle. There are people out there who follow advice and they do no more or no less. Whatever is advised to them, that's what they're going to do. And then we have people who ignore the advice altogether and hang out in crowded places. So you could see how everybody in America probably fits into one of these categories. And you could talk about, if this was, an essay topic for you or a blog topic for you, you could kind of give details and examples and really flesh out these ideas. What about college professors? I'm going to give you a moment, if you're following along in this video, just to sit and think for a moment. Could you take this big group who don't seem to have a lot in common and break them down into a few categories? I'm going to let you think for a moment. Okay. So maybe you came up with, maybe somebody who, the old school professors who don't use any technology and just lecture and their grade book is on paper. I'm sure those people exist. There's probably, the really tech savvy, modern, creative professors out there. There's probably flighty, disorganized professors out there. The idea would be that you take this big group and try and break it down into categories, and that would be a classification. So the purpose of this pattern of development is to look at the relationship among the parts and from the parts to the whole. Just to, again, create a little order out of chaos and make things make sense for your reader. In writing, If you're organizing by division, you're going to find a topic that people tend to overestimate or oversimplify. In other words, choose something that the average person might not know much about and therefore can't really understand how complex or interesting the topic really is. Your job in writing will be to break your topic into meaningful and important categories. If you're organizing by classification, think about the categories we place things in every day and the characteristics of those categories. Writing is developed by putting the items into categories and discussing why they fit into that category. So these two strategies are really closely related. And so you're just going to think about, since we're moving toward our blog, think about your blog theme. And if there's a topic or an issue or a concept that may be a little complicated for your audience, and could you break it down into its parts and explain it to your reader so that it makes more sense to them, or help them see groups of people in a new light? These strategies can be used to help you pre-write ideas. So break an idea into its parts, especially if it's a broad, complex subject. Classify ideas so that you can see which ideas are alike and can be grouped together. When you're taking a test, look for words like kinds, components, parts, and types. These are clues that you will be classifying or dividing when you're answering. Okay, I'm going to show you this link, and I'm going to encourage you, after you watch this video, to go back into this PowerPoint slide and just participate in a brainstorming activity together. So here you could brainstorm types of sports fans. Hardcore fans, they go to every game, paint their faces, and live for their team. You can click that link and go in and put other types of sports fans in there that you can think of, and we could practice dividing those sports fans into groups. So as we wrap up today, it's time for you to think about your blog post. So blog post 4, you're writing a classification division post. So think about your theme and how can you break up the ideas into parts, types, or groups. If you look in the blog assignment, there are some examples there. Frequently, there are people who write makeup blogs. Could you talk about the different types of one kind of makeup, like different types of concealers? Or if you're doing a sports blog, could you take a really complicated, something like quarterbacks, and then break them up into different approaches or styles of those quarterbacks for somebody who may not understand it as fully as you do? So today, print the classification graphic organizer and plan out your blog post. Remember to include images, hyperlinks, and a quotation from an outside source when you write that post, and make sure to submit the link to the blog post 4 in Canvas this week. The next time we meet up, the next video that we're going to have is going to be about focusing on your argument essay outline. So before spring break, you submitted your thesis statement and you received feedback in Canvas. You began looking for sources that you will use to support your argument. So you remember we talked about the library databases, and we also talked about how to vet a source that you found on the internet using the CRAP test, C-R-A-A-P. So you should have some sources on hand that you could be using to support your argument. This week, so Wednesday and Friday, you're going to craft your argument outline, proving that thesis, and you're going to submit your outline in Canvas for feedback. Little typo there, I'm going to leave it. Finally, once you've submitted that outline to your instructor, you're going to begin taking that outline and crafting it into your rough draft. You're soon, instead of doing peer review, you're going to share that outline or that rough draft with your instructor for feedback. Okay, that is everything for today. Go ahead and send messages to your instructor. If you have questions, comments, issues, you want some help, we are here for you, and have a great day.